Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the gun guy. This is going to be a very short and sweet update to the gun ban and stay that the court issued yesterday, because there are a couple of things I want to make really, really clear to you in order to help. So I'll do this quickly. I've got a lot of work to do today, so I only have a few minutes. First of all, yesterday, as you may or may not know, the court did issue a stay on its decision regarding the California magazine ban. But it's a very interesting stay, and it's a stay that leaves open some things and closes some others. And if you get a chance to read it, I would suggest that you do. I will put a link to that stay decision in this in the description of this video so that you can read it if you want. It's in pretty much plain English, and it will explain the judge's thinking. I can't argue with his thinking. I can't argue with his thinking, but I do understand where he was going. All right, so here's a little statement that is on the CRPA website. I will put that up there as well. Its statement came out yesterday, but I'll read it to you real quick and I'll put the link in there. But here's the big deal. I want you to understand all of this because we all need to understand it, but this is the big deal. Do not talk to cops about your magazines. That's my strong advice to you because, forgive me, I just got up and I got to get going for work, but if you start talking to police, you cannot talk your way out of going to jail, but you absolutely can talk your way into going to jail. So I would suggest that what magazines you have, because you had them previously and they were grandfathered, or magazines you've purchased or that you buy today, since you can, my understanding is you can buy them until 5 o'clock today. You can still import them and all those other things. So if you want to make a run to Arizona or Nevada or whatever and buy a bunch of mags and come back, as far as I can determine, that's legal for you to do. As long as you do it before 5 p.m. Pacific time today, whatever mags you end up with, do not talk to police about it. If they want to ask you questions about those mags, where you got them or where, don't answer those questions, because it's very easy for you to find yourself saying the wrong thing and then you're going to get arrested. So that would be my first advice to you. The second one would be, although you've got the mags, and even though the Judge Benitez has written this stay in such a way that those mags will remain legal for you, I would be very, very cautious in the way that you use them in the state of California, because as Rick Travis said yesterday, there are going to be an awful lot of police officers there who are out there who don't know any better, because departments don't have the money or the time or the ability to educate them all. And some cop's going to pop somebody erroneously for these mags. They just are. And then you've got this whole legal battle you're going through while they're determining that you really didn't do anything. So I would encourage you to be very, very careful in that regard as well, whatever you do. Anyway, here's a statement from CRPA. This was written yesterday. It says, today, Federal District Court Judge Robert T. Benitez issued an order staying enforcement of the judgment in the NRA and CRPA supported case of Duncan v. Becerra. Last Friday, Judge Benitez issued a temporary victory for gun owners, striking down California's restrictions against the manufacture, importation, sale, transfer, receipt, and possession of magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds. Today's ruling stays enforcement of the injunction as applied to the restrictions against the manufacture, importation, sale, transfer, and receipt of so-called large capacity magazines as of 5 p.m. April 5th. That's today, 2019. In other words, those restrictions will once again be enforceable after that time. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let me make sure that you understand. That's the restrictions, the old restrictions on buying, selling, importing, manufacturing, or acquiring new magazines. That is not the new restrictions on possession. He didn't stay the injunction against that. We're going back to what this was prior to his decision. So you still, as of 5 o'clock today, you won't be able to buy them, sell them, transfer them, acquire them, import them, manufacture them. But you can possess them. That'll still be legal. All right, let me keep going here. Let's see. But the ruling also declares that the injunction against those restrictions will remain in effect for those persons and business entities who have manufactured, imported, sold, or bought magazines able to hold more than 10 rounds between the entry of this court's injunction on May 29th, 2019, and 5 p.m. April 5th, 2019. So, excuse me, bottom line is, what the judge did is he wrote a very narrow stay. He has written a stay that allows the government some time to appeal this if they wish to do it, although he said in his stay that he doesn't think they're going to be successful. Nevertheless, he's allowed them some time to do that by simply taking us back to where we were, which is you can't import them, buy them, sell them, order them online, go to another state and bring them into the state or any of those kind of things after 5 p.m. today. You can do it right now as of the recording of this video, but at 5 p.m. today, April 5th, that stops and you can't do that anymore. However, if you have mags that were grandfathered before, or you purchased mags during this little hiatus from the time he actually declared the law unconstitutional until 5 p.m. today when he put that stay. If you acquired mags in that time, those mags are legal and you have a right to possess them, and the government cannot enforce the injunction against you because you bought those during the time that those were legal. Now, this is where it goes sideways, is when you start talking to cops. That's such a narrow thing. It's really easy to say something that you didn't intend to or whatever, and the next thing you know, you're in the clink. So my advice to you is do not talk to police officers about your magazines, and don't be overt about the fact that you have them. You don't need to hide it because they're legal, but at the same time, I wouldn't be on YouTube saying, I just bought all these mags. Okay, I am on YouTube, but I'm not going to say that. So there you are. All right. Additionally, the ruling also makes clear that the preliminary injunction in July 2017, which prohibited enforcement of the possession restriction enacted by Proposition 13 and Senate Bill 1446, will remain in effect during the appeal. In other words, they cannot enforce that part of Proposition 63. He left that injunction in place. In other words, California residents who lawfully possessed magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds may continue to possess them while the case is appealed. That said, this is a statement on their letter, and I agree. That said, it is critical that anyone who possesses one of the magazines in California refuse, this is in big, bold, black letters, refuse to talk to law enforcement if asked about their magazines. That's from the lawyers at the California Rifle and Pistol Association. So I'm going to say it again. It is critical that anyone who possesses one of the magazines in California refuse to talk to law enforcement if asked about their magazines. Just clam up, shut up. Because here's the reality of the law. So first of all, I wanted to clarify those things. There's a couple other things I want to clarify real quick. One, in my conversation with Rick Travis yesterday, and by the way, I apologize about all the audio issues. I'm actually going to sit down and spend a lot of time with Wirecast Pro and figure out what is going on with that so we don't have those problems anymore. I think there is another piece of software, another piece of equipment I need to purchase. And if that's the case, I'm going to buy them so we don't have those problems anymore. I apologize about that. Rick Travis made it clear that he would not personally use rifle magazines in featureless rifles, the normal mags, more than 10 rounds. He would not use them in featureless rifles because he wasn't really sure whether you could do that or not. That is Rick being very cautious because, again, he was in law enforcement and he's got boys that are his kids who are in law enforcement, and he deals with law enforcement all the time, and he understands that there are going to be law enforcement officers who don't know any better, and they're going to end up arresting people. And so that was his concern with that. I don't think he ever said that it's not lawful to do, because I'm not sure that, as far as I can tell, I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that it would be lawful to do. They're featureless rifles. A featureless rifle is a featureless rifle. But of course, I'm not an attorney, so don't take that as legal advice. So I don't think it's a problem from a technically legal standpoint to use the magazines you just acquired or that you acquired before 5 p.m. today, or that you had previously because they were grandfathered in. To use them in your featureless rifle, as far as I know, is completely legal. You cannot put them in your registered assault weapon. That's a whole different deal. And I believe you cannot put them in your California compliant rifle. That's a whole different deal. But a featureless rifle is a featureless rifle. And since it's featureless, you should be able to do that without any problem. Now, here's the issue. I would suggest you be very, very careful where and when you do that, so that you don't expose yourself to the view of law enforcement. So if you have property and you can shoot on your own property, or you belong to a private member-only range, and you know the members and you feel confident that you're going to be okay there, that's probably fine. But I don't know that I would go to a public range and use those magazines. In fact, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't do it. because some knucklehead at a public range is going to pick up the phone and call and report you, and the next thing you know, some cop that doesn't know any better is going to you're going to end up in handcuffs, and they're going to say, watch your head. So I would be very, very careful about that. Here's the other thing is, if you shut up about the mags and you don't talk to people about the mags, and if a cop asks you questions, you don't answer the questions about the mags, as this statement says, refuse to talk to law enforcement, then the law is completely and utterly unenforceable, because there's no way that a cop knows whether you got that PMAG during the hiatus that's happened since the judge issued his ruling that the law is unconstitutional, ban is unconstitutional, and today, or whether you've had it for 2 years. There's no way for them to know that, because they're not serialized. Prior to this little hiatus, yeah, there was a way for them to know that, because the original ban, I think, was in 2000. And so if the magazine hadn't been created by then, if it was a brand new model of magazine that didn't exist in 2000, of course they know that you got it in the intervening period. If it was a brand new gun that hadn't been created by 2000, something that's been invented since, and the magazines have been invented since, then of course they know that those magazines didn't exist prior to that. But that situation no longer exists, because millions and millions of mags have been purchased by Californians of all different types, sizes, and sorts. So if you have a Springfield XD and you just bought extended mags for it, or you have a Smith & Wesson M&P and you just bought extended normal mags for it, maybe you've had them for 10 years, maybe you've had them for 5 years, maybe you've had them for 3 years, maybe you got them illegally when you were in Las Vegas and brought them here. But if you just shut up, nobody's going to know that, because you could have just driven over to Yuma or driven over to Nevada or whatever and bought them during this last week, in which case they'd be legal. So, not being an attorney, first of all, one of the few things I don't suggest on this channel, I do not urge people to break the law or whatever. I just don't. And I'm not going to start today. But I am going to tell you that the best bet you've got, if you're confronted or talking with a police officer, is to be quiet. Do not talk to police officers about your magazines or answer questions about them. And if you do that, you'll be fine with the magazines that you have, whether you bought them during this hiatus or you had them before. They'll be legal because of the way the judge wrote this stay. That's where we're at right now. Now, again, I'm going to put the link to the actual stay up there. It's in plain English. I urge you to read it. I'm also going to put the link to this letter from CRP up there. And I apologize for this being so short. I just wanted to get that information out there. Have a wonderful day. I got to get to work. Wherever you go, whatever you do, please be safe.